There we go. Now it's a good evening. We want to start off by congratulating all of the seniors who have entered their second semester. And we also want to congratulate all the students and staff for making it to the halfway point of the school year. It also marks just 2 months until the Disney trip, which is very exciting. South juniors are currently running a fundraiser at South promoting their prom, and seniors have begun planning as well.
With winter sports well underway, all of our sports teams have been looking great, highlighted with the boys varsity basketball win over North last week, which is a great comeback win and very fun to watch with high attendance. We have the beginning of the spring sports registration upon us, so keep an ear out for some more updates. We also want to highlight our United Cheer Team fundraiser, as they in fact have made it to nationals and can't wait to see some titles brought back to West Windsor-Plainsboro.
South is also celebrating Chinese New Year by highlighting talented Chinese authors in our media center. And on February 10th, this weekend, South will be celebrating China Night, so be sure to get out there. With Black History Month well underway, students are finding new and innovative ways to celebrate the Black voices in our community. South's BSU is planning a month of elevating and celebrating those voices of our students and engaging our student body in the history of our present-day power and the Black voices in our community.
We also just put our district courts festive, where South hosted musicians from Grover to perform with the high schools. Our Model United Nations team had a great win at the University of Pennsylvania, gaining yet another win on the national level.
That's all for this week. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. We have High School North.
Good evening, everyone. So on Friday, January 13th, all High School North students participated in DEI Day, a workshop-based educational program focusing on issues related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. There were lunchtime performances of student music groups, as well as positive message signing and inclusive banner signing. Students self-selected one of 38 hour-long sessions with topics that range from disability awareness to cultural dance lessons to discussions on advocacy. We're so grateful that so many WWP staff members, community organizations, and other guest speakers were part of DEI Day, and we're very proud that there were 8 student-led presentations. The positive response from students and staff has been inspiring, and the DEI Day Planning Committee is looking forward to working on next year's DEI Day. Additionally, the High School North Choir and Orchestra held their winter concert on January 12th, and the band held their winter concert on January 19th. In addition, the High School North Community and Community Middle School held their winter band festival with students from both schools collaborating musically on January 26th. The High School North participated in a food drive through our media center for the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen. The girls basketball team also held a Zumba fundraiser for WWP student communities on January 7th, while the boys basketball team held a basketball clinic for younger students. North also held its second annual prom shop on January 28th right here at Central Office. It was a huge success with many students from both North and South attending. And the North MUN team competed recently at the Ivy League MUN Conference over 4 days in Philadelphia. The team performed really well overall, with Ankita Kundu and Ronit Kapoor receiving the coveted Outstanding Delegate Award. North Student Council also attended the Winter Convention for New Jersey State Student Council, with 10th grader Nelly Ghosh, who was elected to NJ State Student Council, where she will serve as the student representative to the state of New Jersey, NJ State Board of Education. And a big thank you goes out to our PTSA and the Senior Celebration Committee. Last Tuesday, all seniors received free Philly soft pretzels to celebrate their entrance into their final semester of high school. And I'll hand it off to Mihir.
Thank you, Ria. This month is Black History Month, and it is being celebrated at High School North with grade-level assemblies with the intent of expanding student knowledge and perspective on Black history, culture, and experience. High School North and South Chinese Club will be hosting a combined event, China Night, this February 10th. At this event, Chinese cultural and hip-hop dances, booths such as drawing Chinese characters, and food will be available. All of this helps our community embrace and learn more about the Chinese culture. Sports teams are beginning to prepare for the postseason. The High School North winter track team took second place at the Central Jersey Group 3 Championship this past weekend. North senior Victoria Henry won big as well with the championship in both the 55-meter and the 400-meter dashes. Senior Jahelia Johnson also won gold in the high jump. A big congratulations also goes out to our girls basketball team for winning both rivalry games at High School South this year. Best of luck to the WWP United Cheer Team, who is heading to Florida this week to compete in the High School Cheer National Championship. More importantly, a big thank you to our technology department for installing new Wi-Fi access points at High School North. We've been discussing this with Dr. Dauber and Mr. James for some time now. As many of you know, this was supposed to be completed last summer. Due to the supply chain issues, it was backed up, but they arrived a few weeks ago, and our technology staff is currently working on the install. Our students really appreciate the help and support from everyone to make this happen. Thank you guys, and have a good night.
Thank you. And thank you again to all our students for coming out and doing the reports. I know we always look forward to this when you're all here, so thank you. All right, so we'll now move to the first opportunity for public comments. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. Are there any public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we will close this public comment portion. And we did not have any committee meetings since our last board meeting, so we don't have any committee reports tonight. So we'll move right along to our voting portion of our meeting. So can I have a motion for administration items 1 through 6? Dana and Liz. Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Dovich.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. All right, we'll now move to curriculum items 1 and 2. Can I have a motion for these items? Loy and Pooja. Any questions or comments? Okay. Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Dovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, can I now have a motion for finance items 1 through 9? Louisa and Shweta. Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Dovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. All right, so we're now going to move to a discussion of the proposed 2023-2024 budget. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Adams.
Good evening, everyone. I'll do my best to keep this brief, as I know I'm standing between you and the State of the Union address. Also, your second helping of pancakes and turkey sausage this evening. So let's start with the district mission. Our district mission is alive and well in the budgets that we create, and we talk about budget as a reflection of our mission, our values, and our goals. And ultimately, we're working to ensure that we develop all students to global competence, social and emotional learning of the whole child, and approach all facets of the work we do through the lens of equitable opportunities, access, and belonging. And we have identified our 4 strategic goals as we talk about, so I'm not going to belabor them this evening. So when we talk about our overall financial program, we talk about budget as a planning tool, the importance of considering contingencies. Remember, school districts do not have credit. What we budget, we have is our fixed amount annually, and should we have expenditures above and beyond, we have to find it within our budget. So we have to consider contingencies like a boiler going down or the need for a growth staff member, but we have to also be fiscally responsible to the community that we serve. We have to be able to manage risk, and when we talk about risk, we often forget that school districts are not only the large public entities, but when you think about personnel and insurance and liability and cyber and all the different facets, we have to manage risk and insurance components. And again, it's a reflection of our values, but we have to think about safeguards and buffers, spikes in energy, additional devices that might be needed, and clearly that over time, what happens is in a budgetary year, if you don't spend the money, it goes back to the taxpayers in a subsequent budget. And if we look at that over time, the district has been, every year we utilize prior year funding that goes back, what's called excess surplus. It goes back to help build the next year's budget. So when we talk about a school budget, we talk about priorities for students at the heart of what we do, but we also have a fiscal reality, so finances must be in mind. Our budget process often goes through, well, there's a fiscal calendar of July 1 through June 30th, and budgets often are put together from December through February, but in truth, the minute that budget is approved in April, the following year's budget cycle begins. The analysis, going through the audit process, working with the finance committee, ultimately setting our goals for the next year, and then working through the fall with the finance committee, working through the HR department with staffing ratios, working with our building managers. So it's an ongoing process. At the end of the day, there's two rules in budgeting. Your tax revenue must be within cap or cap plus allowances, and revenues must always equal expenses, right? So where's money come from? It comes from local taxes, from state aid, as well as from federal aid, grants, interest, tuition, and then again, budgeted surplus and whatnot. Reserves, withdrawals, money that might, if we assign capital projects, things might come out of our capital reserve account. Where's it go? And again, we often think of the classrooms, but we have salaries and benefits, utility costs, repairs and maintenance, professional services, technology and transportation. I'll speak to some more depth about some of these: supplies, textbooks, materials, support services, special education costs, healthcare costs, capital projects. The reality is the bulk of the costs are in salaries and benefits, and sometimes it's well over 70% of a district budget will be in those two categories. So from a budget process timeline, we are right there in the second third of that. January, March public address, followed by the governor's address with the release of the state aid numbers. That historically happens the third or fourth week of February. Fourth week of February, we believe it's going to be on the 28th this year. Waiting to hear if that's going to shift. We should have our state aid numbers released on March 2nd. By March 14th, though, we have to have that preliminary budget to the county superintendent. So our early March meeting this year, we'll have to do the tentative budget for the county soup, the county BA. They review the submitted budget to make sure it's within appropriate categories and we meet all the different state laws. And then they give us feedback. Often that feedback is it's acceptable to post. They might ask questions. We have to clarify whatnot. Is it possible between March and April at the public hearing that things could shift? It's possible if the state aid numbers shift, right, that we may have to make some additional changes. It's possible that the board might still have some questions that have to be resolved, but historically what happens in March has a tendency to be what happens at the public meeting on April 25th. There is an official public hearing. It's the opportunity for a presentation and then a special opportunity for the public to come to the podium, ask questions or ask comments. It's comments, not questions. It's not a Q&A. And then ultimately the board has to make a determination to adopt the budget. If the board adopts the budget that evening, that is the budget for the 23-24 school year moving forward. There's some what-ifs behind that, like at the end of June, if the state legislature and the governor don't agree and the state aid changes. We've run into that during the pandemic. But for the most part, what happens on April 25th will be the budget for 23-24. It's how we move forward with our staffing ratios and everything. I want to just pause and recognize the Finance Committee, the Board of Education, the Finance Department, Dr. Russo in particular. They've won the Certificate of Excellence for 14 consecutive years by ASBO. They've also received the Meritorious Budget of Excellence for the last 8 consecutive years. This is not something that is seen in many districts. It's a real credit to the process. It's a credit to the payroll supervisors, purchasing, our comptrollers, our accountant, the whole finance team and all the work they do. It's also a credit to the partnership between HR and payroll and the finance department, and we should be really proud of the work and strong oversight from the finance committee. So just a couple real quick categories about just give a sense of the challenge that districts, not WWP, but school districts are facing. We are very fortunate that we moved to self-funding because we're seeing a smaller rate at 9.9% than some of the state healthcare districts, which are seeing over 14 to 15%, and some of the counties and municipalities are seeing over 20%, 24%. So we are seeing a state aid, our healthcare increase at 9.9%. Because of the pandemic years, with some of the insurance being used not as fully, only because, again, a lot of appointments were delayed, a lot of surgeries that were considered optional or not emergency-based were postponed. We did have some breakage in the healthcare lines, and we were able to create our emergency reserve accounts for our healthcare, which is an important component of self-insurance. But I'll be honest, if we didn't have the years of breakage, I don't know if we could have done that. So we've been able to set up appropriate reserve accounts as per our audit, our auditors, and our healthcare brokers. And so that protects us if we have a month or a year of overspending. Even with that reserve, we're seeing a 9.9% increase because the escalation of use rates as well as some of the inflationary costs that are occurring in the healthcare industry. Transportation is challenging. Last year, the majority of our routes were not renewed. We saw many of our routes renew at over 20%, and we saw a drive increase of well over 1.6 million, I believe, budgeted, and an extra 600,000 in additional costs that were not budgeted. What's driving some of that? Huge number of lack of drivers. Hourly rate increases have incurred. There's insurance increases that transportation contractors have faced, as well as gas prices that had fluctuated last year at the time of renewal, is when the time in which diesel was approximately $6 a gallon. And so renewals hit at a very bad time of inflation, as well as lack of drivers, as well as the challenges with respect to diesel at the time. CPI is the Consumer Price Index. What happens in the transportation world is contracts can be renewed then after at CPI. And what CPI is not CPI that we would follow naturally just in the news. It's actually a regional CPI between Philadelphia and New York, and it has a look-back period. Specifically, you have to go back 6 months, and then it's a 12-month window from that point. So it's really set 18 months to 6 months back. So the look back is still early in the pandemic, which means that's why some of those early months were still in the 2-3 range, which is why we're at 5.86. Next year, we can expect that number will be a little higher because the look back is going to be when it was in the 8s to 7s. So I would expect next year's renewals will be a little bit higher than we're seeing at 5.86. Challenging when you start putting that on top of a $15 million budget. And then you throw that into a 2% world, which we're capped at on our general fund. ABM, it's our building and management group. They're going into year 4 of 5 in renewal, so we have to be mindful that we have 2 years left, and then we'll have to go through a bid process. There is some additional square footage, which is driving a couple staff position growth to keep to the square footage to employee ratios. On the insurance and salary side, we have contractual cost increases that will naturally happen. We are in negotiations this year, so something we have to be mindful of. We also have seen a lot of insurance renewal increases as a result of cyber, which is something you have to now separate and have an independent policy. You also have COVID, natural disaster, theft, have seen some increases within the insurance pool. So insurance has caused a bit of a spike for districts. ROD grant projects, Governor Murphy and the state legislature put forward a ROD grant program. This is a regular operating district grant program. That's the ROD is, again, regular operating district. They put forward a pot of $350 million. That was just, it's been announced, but the grant cycle window was just opened and put out last week by broadcast. The district in December brought forward 5 projects. Those 5 projects had a total cap reserve at $5.376 million would be the district expected budget to those projects. ROD grants are broken into tiered approved projects, tier 1, 2, 3. I think it's 3 tiers if I remember correctly. And based on the tier and based on the number of submitted projects, the rule of thumb is districts apply if accepted, and if you perform the project, complete the project, you can earn as much as 40% back in state contribution. The trick with ROD grants is you have to have the money to get the money back. You have to put all the money out as a district to be able to apply for the 40% back on the back end of the project. So districts that have, do not have a cap reserve to do projects are really in a position where they're not going to be able to apply for these projects. As so many districts have had extremely tight budgets, their capital reserve dollars have continued to shrink. They're not able to apply for these kind of projects. So we're very fortunate that even through the referendum, we've been able to maintain some of our capital reserve through that to help take advantage of opportunities like this for the taxpayers. Again, on the revenue side, where does money come from? The bulk of the district's dollars comes from the 2% general fund. The general fund is on the local tax share, which is over 90% for us. Allowances are in two areas. There's a healthcare adjustment that is going to be available to us this year. We did not think a year ago that we were going to have a calculation for an SGLA or spending growth limitation adjustment for healthcare. And in fact, when we met in December, the formula had not been opened yet, and we were still in the renewal process. Because of the 9.9% increase in healthcare, the board does have an opportunity to generate an SGLA in healthcare, and we'll talk more about that with the Finance Committee as we work through those calculations. And with an SGLA, the board has the option to tax an allowance to the community above and beyond 2%. So in the past, we've gone 2.3, 2.4, 2.5% increase. That's because we had allowances. Bank cap is when you don't spend the totality of your allowance. You can bank that for up to 2 additional years. So when you generate an SGLA, you can spend those dollars over 3 years, year 1 being this year, year 2 and 3 in the 2 out years. So the board will have to make a determination. 1, do you choose to exercise the SGLA? And then if you use some or part of it, or all of it, you could use all of it, but then you don't have any in the out years. You could use some of it and leave some into what would be considered bank cap in the future year, or you can use none of it. It would then all go into bank cap for subsequent years for a future board to decide, but it expires after 2 years, 2 additional years. And then there's another allowance for enrollment growth, but that requires you to grow over 10% in one given year in your enrollment, and it's very difficult to generate an SGLA for enrollment. With respect to cap reserve allocation, that's determined based on the total number of capital projects that we might choose to do. The ROD grants themselves, if we only move forward the ROD grants, we might need to apply as much as $5 million for, but I would tell you that we don't have in my estimation, we would want to spread those ROD grants out over probably 2 to 3 school years. So even if we earn them and win those projects, we would want to spread that money out over 2 to 3 cycles versus to put $5 million worth of projects into next year's budget. We're still working through 3 library projects, the Wyckoff expansion, the North Library, the North Culinary. So there's many projects ongoing, and there's a capacity of how many projects can you do and how many different sites at one time. So I believe the 2 town center projects would be the priority at this point. And we have an unknown state aid increase. We have a projection because of the state put forward a six-year funding program a couple of years ago where they were moving districts towards full funding, or they were removing funding from other districts. Those are known as the S2 districts you might have heard about in paper or at board meetings or at school boards. Those are S2 districts are the 100+ districts that are losing aid. WWP has been underfunded in state aid, so we should anticipate an increase. If the formula plays itself out, we should see approximately $800,000. So with that, big picture, when you start looking at all these different places, and the number I'm going to say does not include capital projects, healthcare, $2.8 million increase. We budgeted 0 last year, which is one of the reasons for that exorbitant increase. Salary increase, approximately 2.3. That's based on what we've historically done the last 7-8 years. Transportation, we're anticipating because of the CPI number, a $2.1 million increase. So if we just add all these up, it's 9 million plus. And again, I will make sure you get these slides. It'll be 9 million plus. I see folks writing, but I'll make sure you get it. 9 million, 9.1, 9.2, right? So that's a big number. And so there's, okay, can you generate to offset that? And we can generate 4.3. So the challenge the challenge we're in right now is somewhere between the 9.1 of increased spending and the 4.3. We have to close about 4.8. And that's the challenge that we're in right now. So within that, there'll be some reductions. Within that, there'll be some efficiencies. Within that, we'll have to look at how we use surplus, and we'll have to then find a way to close this down. And then we'll have to have the conversation about SGLA for healthcare and how that could potentially contribute to closing this dollar amount down. But right now, the next step will be at the Future Finance Committee on the 21st or 22nd of February, 22nd, to have the next conversation regarding the state of the budget and have some conversations about what we're finding with the SGLA. We're still working through some of the staffing, finalization of the staffing with respect to moving everyone forward on what they could earn into next year with some projections. And we are looking at some of the cap reserve, capital, building and grounds, some of the areas around tech, how we can leverage some of our ARP and ESSER monies, whatnot. So you get a sense, it's a complicated, the salaries actually shouldn't say non-WWP, it should just be salaries. That's not 2.3 of non-WWP, that's 2.3 of the entire pot. It used to be separated. I added it together, I should have removed that parentheses. But bottom line is, we have a tough math formula, and the board's looking at that number and say, that looks bigger than I remember, because it is. It got worse, not better, since we met in December. So, our options. Don't do option 3, please. But, option 1 is, we can go 2%, right? Option 2, we can do the 2% and then move towards bank cap for healthcare. We can utilize some of the healthcare SGLA. And 3 is do 1 and 2, 1 in the bank cap, but then you really need to reduce a ton of programs and staff. Because at the end of the day, the services we offer to the community, to our students, is staff heavy, right? It's driven by people. People implement those programs for kids. Yeah, it's option 2 would have had I should have removed bank cap from option 1. Right, bank cap should be removed from bullet 1. Right, and so, but you get the idea. You get the idea that we're in a position where we want to find every way to preserve programs for students. The budget we're bringing forward has currently 0 growth staff. But there's plenty of need out there. And the one caveat is we will always need to look within our special ed programming to determine needs for individual students and individual programs. So we are looking at our ratios of service providers like OTPT speech to student requests or student IEP needs. We always will have to look at individual like IAs or classroom IAs based on either code or IEP specific. And we're always going to need to make sure we have a sequence of classes. So when I say we're not, it's staff, it doesn't add staff. The one caveat, of course, is always IEPs and student programmatic needs in special education will drive some staff decisions above and beyond whatever we budget. And we have to find a way to make that work within the dollars that are allocated. And that happens every year. And that's questions from the board.
Louisa.
So the second one on there was supposed to have an additional number on it based on the The
SGLA.
SGLA allowance, and we're
Right.
going to talk about, we're still working on that. We're going to talk about that at a future committee meeting, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have a sense of what that SGLA could be, but we've had no conversation with the board because the software just opened
Okay.
about a week ago. So we
Okay.
have not had a finance committee meeting since that
Right.
time. And so because we've had no conversation with the board committee, I was reluctant to put a number up there without a conversation with board and get some direction.
So then we'll find out how big a chunk that will help us with what we're missing.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thanks. Thank you, David.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is our personnel. Can I have a motion for items 1 and 2 plus the green addendum, Graylin and Robin? Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Mr. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty. Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. All right, and Ian, we just voted tonight on a number of retirements, so I'll like to do the acknowledgements. We have Nancy Dunn, school counselor at Dutch Neck, who's retiring after 24 years in district. Kenneth Fantry, a language arts teacher from High School North, retiring after 25 years in the district. Cynthia Jaworski, a science teacher from High School South, retiring after 25 years in the district. Jan Pitas, health and PE teacher from Grover Middle School, retiring after 17 years in the district. June Shen, Chinese teacher from High School North and High School South, retiring after 25 years in the district. Mariana Vasiliou, music teacher from Grover Middle School, retiring after 22 years in the district. And Frido Marcelin, bus driver in our transportation department, retiring after 26 years in the district. So it's a lot of retirements. So thank you so much to all of you for your years of service to the district, and wish you all the best in your retirement. Thank you. All right, so now I'll move to the approval of our minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the January minutes? Liz and Louisa. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I need to abstain on the January 3rd meeting.
Okay. Abstentions? So any other abstentions? All right. Board liaison reports. Okay, Dana?
Good evening. Is this working? Okay. As the Board of Education liaison to the New Jersey School Boards Association and president of the Mercer County School Boards, I would like to share some highlights from the recent Mercer County School Board Association meeting. Last Thursday, February 1st, the Mercer County School Board Association held its quarterly meeting online. There were over 20 board members representing 7 of the 11 county boards of education and several board members from other counties in attendance. The main speaker at this meeting was Lisa Filippaldi, a lawyer specializing in education. She spoke to the group about how to manage board meetings when people attend the meetings to try to disrupt the meeting. She shared tips and techniques for respecting the members of the public while maintaining order and adhering to board policy and the Open Public Meetings Act. Representatives from the New Jersey School Board Association spoke about legislation pending in the state legislature and many upcoming training opportunities. The Mercer County School Board Association will next meet at Trenton High School on Wednesday, March 15th at 6 o'clock. At this meeting, we will learn from eighth graders across the county as they engage in a dialogue about their education journey. I hope that some of my board colleagues can join me at the meeting, and thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Any other liaison reports? Go ahead, Loy.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. Liz and I are the liaisons for the PTAs, and we just wanted to recognize some of our students, actually, who participated in the Reflections program. It's a the PTA National Reflections program is a opportunity for students to take part in different types of arts, and it's a competition, but it's fun in general. And there are, I think, 6 categories: dance, choreography, film production, literature, music composition, photography and visual arts. So it's a great way for kids to express themselves. This year's theme was Show Your Voice, and the WWP had a great showing. A lot in the county level. There's school level, county level, states, and then nationals. But West Windsor-Plainsboro had 44 students who were winners in the county level and across all K-12 schools. So there were 7 from Wyckoff, 2 from Town Center, 2 from Millstone River, 1 from CMS, 2 from High School North, and on the West Windsor side, 4 from Dutch Neck, 4 from Maurice Hawk, 2 from Dutch Neck. Village had 4 winners, Grover had 9, and then High School South had 11. So as you can see, just great numbers for all the students who participated, and those students, 44 of them, will move on to now the state level. So good luck to all those students, and I'm sure the respective PTAs will announce the names and the winners on the county level. So we just want to say congratulations to everyone, and good luck.
Thank you, Loy.
Yeah, I think it's also important just to recognize one of our district parents runs the Reflections programs for the state PTA, Maya Kamath. So just a thank you to Maya for all she does for the state PTA and our local.
Yeah, I know Maya was hoping to come to present to the board and share this wonderful news, so I'm glad I can give an update to the board for that. Thank you, and thank you, Maya.
Thank you. Thank you, Loy. Any other liaison reports? All right. Any new business? Okay, that takes us to the second opportunity for public comments. The board invites comments from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any public comments? Okay. Hearing none, we will close this second opportunity for public comments. Can I have a motion then to adjourn? Pooja and Dana, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Appreciate it.